There are certain faces in Hollywood history that don't simply appear on screen, they stare back at you, daring you to look away. Bette Davis was one of them. Heavy cast eyes, clipped New England diction, and a willpower that seemed carved from granite made her unlike any actress of her time. Before she was a legend, before the Oscars and the iconic lines that would echo through film history, she was Ruth Elizabeth Davis, a young girl from Lowell, Massachusetts, trying to find her place in a world that rarely made room for women with fire in their bones. Her childhood wasn't cushioned by stability. At just 7, she watched her family split apart, her mother left to raise 2 daughters alone. Yet even in those early years, something restless stirred within her, a refusal to shrink, a refusal to bend. It was the beginning of a lifelong pattern. When the world tried to close a door on Bette Davis, she simply found another one to walk through and slammed it behind her. If Bette Davis's childhood carved resilience into her bones, her teenage years sharpened it into ambition. At Cushing Academy in Massachusetts, she stepped onto a stage for the first time, not yet confident, not yet commanding, but undeniably drawn to the heat of the spotlight. Something about performing flickered within her, a small flame that would soon roar into a career-defining blaze. Summer Stock Theater in Rochester became her boot camp, the place where she discovered just how much grit acting required. The long rehearsals, the cramped dressing rooms, the relentless expectation to deliver, Davis absorbed it all like training for a life she knew she wanted. And when New York City called, she didn't hesitate. At the John Murray Anderson Robert Milton School of Theater and Dance, she arrived as one of many hopefuls, blending into crowded rooms filled with ambition. Yet even then, there was something unmistakable about her, a quiet intensity, a sense that she was studying more than scripts. She was studying people, preparing to portray them with a fearlessness few possessed. Her classmates included future stars like Lucille Ball, but Davis wasn't there for camaraderie. She was there to claim a destiny she could already feel pulling her forward. New York gave Bette Davis her first real break, a modest stage debut in The Earth Between at the Provincetown Playhouse, followed quickly by her Broadway appearance in Broken Dishes. They weren't glamorous roles, but they were proof she could survive in a profession that devoured the unprepared. What she didn't expect was Hollywood's cold shoulder. Her early screen test led to a Universal Studios contract, but the studio executives didn't know what to do with her. They expected ingenues with wide smiles and soft edges. Davis offered neither. Her first film, Bad Sister in 1931, tucked her into small parts that barely hinted at her capability. Yet beneath the makeup and awkward wardrobe choices, she was quietly sharpening her craft, observing, absorbing, waiting. It wasn't until Warner Bros. Noticed her work in The Man Who Played God that the industry finally paused. Suddenly, this girl with the fierce stare wasn't a misfit, she was a revelation. Warner Bros. Offered her a contract, and she accepted it with the urgency of someone who understood exactly how quickly opportunity could vanish. Those early years were frantic, 14 films in just 3 years. Hollywood was finally paying attention, and Bette Davis wasn't about to let the moment slip through her fingers. It took just one role to change everything, and fittingly, it was a character as raw and unsympathetic as Hollywood had never dared to give a young actress. When Warner Bros. Loaned Bette Davis to RKO for Of Human Bondage in 1934, she seized the part of Mildred, a vulgar, unrepentant waitress who practically spat her lines. Critics were stunned, audiences were shaken, and for the first time, Davis felt the industry look at her with something very close to awe. Her first Academy Award nomination arrived, and with it, a new identity. She was no longer a starlet trying to fit in. She was a force who refused to be prettied up or simplified. Dangerous followed, and with it, her first Oscar in 1935. Even so, Hollywood wasn't done testing her. A rocky stretch at Warner Bros. Left her suspended, frustrated, and bold enough to sue the studio for better roles. She lost the lawsuit, but she won something far more valuable: respect. When she returned, it was on her terms, with a higher salary and creative leverage she'd fought for tooth and nail. By the time Jezebel arrived in 1938, earning her a second Oscar, Davis wasn't just performing, she was defining what a screen heroine could be: flawed, formidable, and unforgettable. The late 1930s and 1940s became Bette Davis's kingdom, a period when she embraced roles that demanded every ounce of her emotional ferocity. In Dark Victory, she played a wealthy woman confronting mortality with a vulnerability that revealed how deeply she could cut into the human condition. That same year, she embodied Queen Elizabeth I in The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, demonstrating that historical grandeur suited her just as much as modern tragedy. Film after film, she delivered characters who weren't just memorable, they were seismic. The Little Foxes gave her a chance to expose the icy ambitions of Regina Giddens. The Man Who Came to Dinner let her loosen her grip and play with comedic precision. And then came Now Voyager, a quiet storm of transformation and resilience that further cemented her as one of Warner Bros.' most prized talents. By the time 1949, when she finally severed ties with the studio that shaped and tested her, Davis had become far more than a contract player. She was a standard-bearer, a woman who had carved out a space in an industry that rarely honored women with complexity or control. And still, her most iconic performance was yet to come. In 1950, Bette Davis stepped into the role that would etch her name permanently into cinematic history. As Margot Channing in All About Eve, she delivered a performance soaked in wit, fury, and aching vulnerability. A portrait of aging not as surrender, but as defiant brilliance. Her famous quip, "Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night," became more than a line. It became prophecy. She continued to shift, adapt, and storm forward. She returned to royal command in The Virgin Queen, then surprised audiences again with the eerie, unsettling charge of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, a role that proved she could still dominate a frame with unnerving intensity. Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte, Burnt Offerings, and the ensemble hit Death on the Nile followed, each one a reminder that she never softened, never settled, never faded. Illness struck in her later years, including a battle with breast cancer, but Davis worked as though time had no authority over her. Emmy-winning performances and continued film roles carried her through a final decade of accolades. Even as age carved its marks, nothing dimmed the ferocity that had defined her from the start. Behind the sharpened stare and the barbed one-liners lived a woman whose private world was as turbulent as the character she embodied. Bette Davis married 4 times, first to musician Harmon Oscar Nelson, then to Arthur Farnsworth, whose sudden death in 1943 left her shaken. With her third husband, William Grant Sherry, she welcomed her daughter, Barbara. Later, with actor Gary Merrill, her All About Eve co-star, she adopted 2 children, Margot and Michael. Each marriage ended, but none broke her spirit. Davis treated heartbreak the same way she treated Hollywood. She endured, she adjusted, and she kept moving. Her autobiographies, The Lonely Life and This and That, revealed a woman unafraid to dissect her own triumphs and failures. And when her final years arrived, she faced them with the same steel that had carried her from Lowell to global fame. She died in France in 1989 at age 81, returning from a festival where she had just been honored, fitting for a woman who worked until the world applauded one last time. Today, her legacy lives in every actress who refuses to apologize for taking up space, for playing unlikable women, for demanding better. Bette Davis didn't just change Hollywood, she challenged it to rise to her level.